After Simon's rather dramatic trip to the pub with Archie, he manages to make it back to the dubious safety of the boarding house. Eric is very pleased to have Simon back at home, but Simon feels a little guilty having abandoned him for the evening, so he goes to the car to get Eric's favourite tennis ball. However, as he leaves his room, he bumps into his mysterious neighbour, Mrs. Candles, and for the first time ever, she actually speaks to him. She invites him back to her room for a cuppa, and he discovers that she is rather lovely. They fortify their tea with a shot or three of whiskey, and Rebecca, Mrs. Candle's real name, plays a guitar and sings, sending Simon into raptures. Such a wonderful evening, such beauty and peacefulness existing so near to his own depressing room. Maybe life's not so bad after all. I awoke unexpectedly early next morning and found that I felt something I had not experienced for a long time. I felt relaxed. I stretched and sank into the warm, lumpy mattress. A heavy body next to me yawned. "Good morning, Eric." He looked at me through half-closed eyes, then, pushing his head into my right shoulder, went back to sleep. A tree outside tapped at the window as a gust of wind swept by. Something in my mind clicked. A torrent of memories burst from my subconscious. A dream. I'd been dreaming. I noticed tension creep into my body. I was in some sort of derelict building, large, cavernous, a run-down warehouse. Only the immediate area around me was lit. A few feet beyond me, in every direction, was total darkness. I could hear the faint movements of unseen people. I called out, but got no reply. I was sitting in a chair, alone in that pool of light. Suddenly, something flew at me from the darkness. The object missed me, passing a few inches off my right shoulder. I turned my head quickly, but the object disappeared into the blackness behind me, faster than I could turn my head. I strained to see, to identify the object, but it had been swallowed by the unlit void, and I was stuck fast in the chair. As I turned to face forward, another missile flew from the darkness and hit me full in the face. As it bounced off my cheek, I recognized it. A ball. A tennis ball. I shouted out, "Who's there? What do you want?" Another tennis ball hit me on the chin. Not only couldn't I get up, but neither could I raise my hands to protect myself. My arms were being held tightly. The tennis balls kept on coming with increasing rapidity, and each one hit my unprotected face, each one hurting more than the last. "Please! What do you want? Why are you doing this?" I cried out. The pain of the impacts had become overwhelming and was increasing in intensity by my incomprehension. I pulled at my hands to free them, but they were still held fast. I turned my head from side to side, but the balls kept on coming, and every one of them found its target. Then, and I don't know why, I tried to catch the balls with my mouth. But I couldn't do it. The missiles ricocheted off my teeth and lips. In a desperate attempt to get free, I pulled as hard as I could on my arms. They would not move. I looked downwards towards my hands as the balls flew at me, beginning to tear my flesh, and saw the reason my hands could not move. I was sitting on them, my own weight making it impossible to protect myself or catch the balls being fired at me. I woke up. A tree tapped at the window. It was 7:30. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I got dressed and went for breakfast. I sat at one of the round tables in the dining room. I could see Mrs. Minnison through the serving hatch. Although the shabbiness of the room depressed my appetite, the smell of frying bacon made me salivate. 3 people were already there, eating, each of them at separate tables. None of them seemed secure enough to acknowledge my arrival. Mrs. Minnison put her head through the serving hatch. "Simon! Well, this is a rare pleasure." "Good morning, Mrs. Minnison. Full English?" "That sounds good. Cup of tea?" "Thank you." The food was simple and greasy, but satisfying. Pushing my empty plate away from me, I felt a sense of achievement. I was no longer an outsider who lay in his room until after 9 o'clock, who rarely spoke to anyone and had become forgotten by a world he had so recently vacated. Now I had spent an evening with a beautiful woman, followed by getting up at a reasonable time, early enough to eat a traditional breakfast that sat fulfillingly in my belly. I was nearly human again. Mrs. Minnison's head appeared at the hatch. I looked up. Archie's bulk was filling the doorway. "Good morning, all," he bellowed, almost as a challenge to the room's timid occupants. "Full English?" asked Mrs. Minnison. "No," said Archie. "A full Scottish." He looked over at me. "Simon, just the man I wanted to see." Half an hour later, after Archie had finished eating, we were walking Eric. Archie had insisted on coming with us. Although I had got over my ridiculous thoughts about him, he still made me feel uncomfortable. When we got to the park, I let Eric off his lead. He spun around and, crouching low to the ground, looked at me. His legs quivered in anticipation. I took his tennis ball from my pocket and threw it. The wind picked up and found its way into the neck of my coat. I shivered. "I guess you think I'm a bit of a lunatic," said Archie. I said nothing. I watched Eric perform a flying roll, springing up triumphant with the ball in his mouth. He threw the ball into the air, tried to catch it, but mistimed his catch. The ball flew off across the field. I smiled as Eric gave manic chase. "You see, Simon, it's a bit complicated." "How's that?" "I've been looking for someone I can trust. The people I mix with are a bit, untrustworthy?" "Aye, very untrustworthy. Someone like you, Simon. You seem a reliable sort of fellow, very, Archie searched for the right word. "Dependable?" I offered. "Aye, good word. You are dependable. And that's what I need." "For what?" He stopped walking, took my arm and looked at me. He seemed to be searching my face for reassurance. "For what?" I repeated. "What am I dependable for?" We had reached a wooden bench. Archie, who still had a grip on my arm, guided us to sit down. I checked Eric was okay. He had abandoned the ball and was pulling at a medium-sized branch that was entangled in some undergrowth. "Right," said Archie. "Here goes. I said I made up the island thing, right?" I nodded. "I needed people to accept that I had a bit of money. You know, ask no questions." "But there is no island." "No." "So the money?" He held my arm tighter. Paranoia radiated from his grip. "You see, Simon, I'm a bank robber." A strangled laugh burst from my mouth. "What?" "Aye," he said, "I'm a bank robber. I was the getaway driver on a job. We stole just under £6 million. "Are you serious?" "Deadly serious. Someone must have tipped off the buzzers because they were waiting for us. I was the only one who got away. My job was to stash the money until the heat died down. But it all went tits up, and they got caught, except me, and the £6 million. I sat listening to him, not knowing whether to call the police or an asylum. "So you have £6 million of stolen money from a bank robbery?" I said. "No, not 6 million. I called the business anonymously and told them where the money was. I hoped that as they had the gang and I was giving them the money back, they would let it go at that." "But if you gave the money back, what money do you have?" "I held back a little for myself. I thought if they had most of it, that would be an end of it. I didn't keep much." I looked around the field. The world hadn't stopped turning. Lucy was not in the sky with diamonds. Everything seemed totally normal. In the distance, Eric had detached the stick from the bush and was making sure it was dead. His tail wagged wildly. "How much did you keep?" "£500,000, he said sheepishly. I laughed ironically. £500,000, and you thought they'd let that go? "Yeah, it was stupid, but that's what happened. The question is, what to do now?" "So," I said, "what are you going to do now?" Archie smiled at me and put his hands out like he was demonstrating emergency exit on an aeroplane. "That's where you come in." "Me?" I said suspiciously. "Aye, you see, I can't trust the sort of people I know. I've got every criminal in the country watching me, waiting for me to go to them, get the money. The business too. They're watching me, just waiting. They're all just waiting for me to make a move. So you see, I can't do anything. But you, nobody's watching you. Nobody will follow you. You see?" "You want me to get the money?" "Aye, and I'll give you 50 grand for your trouble." "And you think you can trust me?" "I know people. You're the man I need." I tried to show indifference, but I could feel, and I knew Archie could see, the barbed hooks of temptation piercing my flesh. "Where's the money?" "Fevig." "Where's Fevig?" "A remote little place on the Isle of Lewis." He paused. "You'll do it, won't you?" Why was I even talking to this guy? I'm not that man. I'm not a criminal. I'm a regular sort, stable, dependable. But that was apparently a negative in today's legitimate world. I couldn't believe what I said next. "Yeah, Archie, I'll do it." I laughed hysterically. "Yeah, I'll do it." Archie joined me in my hysteria. He slapped me on the back. I felt like I had been accepted into a brotherhood. I looked around the park. Colours seemed to be brighter, the wind warmer. I could see Eric in the distance. Having destroyed his stick, he came running over to see what the crazy humans were up to.